one of you dares touch my daughter? I need to meet you!
They mocked a little girl for saying her dad rode with the Hells Angels, called her a liar, said bikers were nothing but criminals and thugs. 24 hours later, 34 engines shook that school to its foundation, and when those classroom doors opened, every kid who laughed went dead silent. Before we dive in, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments right now. If you're part of the Brotherhood, or you respect what these men stand for, hit that subscribe button because we're bringing you real stories about loyalty, family, and the code that holds America together. Now let's get into the story. Kate Wilson learned early that some truths are better kept quiet. Not because they're shameful, but because people don't understand what they haven't lived. And in Amarillo, Texas, in a town where Friday night football and Sunday church were the only religions that mattered, a 10-year-old girl with a biker dad didn't fit the script. She sat in the back corner of Miss Willoughby's 5th grade classroom, doodling in the margins of her social studies notebook. While the other kids whispered about weekend sleepovers and who liked who, Kate sketched the only thing that made sense to her. Motorcycles, Harleys, specifically, the kind her dad rode, the kind that rumbled down their street at odd hours, carrying men with gray beards and leather cuts who spoke in a language the rest of the world didn't bother to learn. Under her pink cotton shirt, hidden from everyone, hung her dad's old Marine Corps dog tags. The metal was warm against her skin, worn smooth from years of service in places most people only saw on the news. Iraq, Fallujah, places where her dad had earned the right to wear that patch on his cut, the eagle, globe, and anchor that meant something more than just a piece of fabric. William Wilson wasn't like the other dads. He didn't coach Little League or show up to PTA meetings in khakis and a button-down. He showed up on 2 wheels if he showed up at all, not because he didn't care, but because he was often on the road. Charity rides for children's hospitals, veteran runs to honor brothers who didn't make it home. Brotherhood business that Kate understood without needing the details. When you're raised by a man who lives by a code, you learn to read between the lines. But here's what the other kids didn't know, what their parents whispered about at soccer games and neighborhood barbecues while casting sidelong glances at the Wilson house. William was the kind of father who taught his daughter that respect isn't given, it's earned. That family isn't just the people who share your blood, it's the ones who stand with you when the world doesn't. That sometimes the system fails people, and when it does, you have to be the one who shows up. Kate had learned all of this sitting on the back of his bike during weekend rides through the Texas Panhandle, wind in her face, her small arms wrapped around her dad's waist. She'd learned it watching him and his brothers organize toy drives every December, filling trailers with gifts for kids in foster care. Kids the system had forgotten. She'd learned it the night her dad came home, jaw tight, and told her mom about a woman 3 counties over who needed an escort to court because her ex wouldn't stop threatening her. 20 bikers showed up that morning, forming a wall between fear and justice. Kate was proud of her father, proud of the man he was, proud of the brothers he rode with. But pride and silence had become the same thing. Because when you're 10 years old and the principal looks at your dad like he's trouble on 2 wheels, when the other moms clutch their purses a little tighter when he walks past, when kids at school repeat things their parents said about those people, you learn to make yourself small, invisible. She touched the dog tags under her shirt, feeling the raised letters of her father's name, a secret connection. A reminder that even when she sat alone at lunch, even when she pretended not to hear the whispers, she wasn't really alone. Somewhere out there, On some highway between Amarillo and anywhere, her dad was riding. And behind him, a brotherhood that never left a man or his family behind. But tomorrow was career day, and Kate had a choice to make. Keep the truth buried, safe under cotton and silence, or finally let people see what she'd always known, that the man they feared was the kind of father every kid deserved. She didn't know it yet, but that choice would change everything. Miss Willoughby stood at the front of the classroom that Wednesday morning, her enthusiasm for career day written in loopy cursive across the whiteboard. She was the kind of teacher who believed every child had potential, that every parent had a story worth celebrating. What she didn't understand yet was that some stories don't fit inside the neat lines of suburban expectations. Today, she announced, adjusting her reading glasses, we're going to learn about what makes America great. The people who build it, heal it, and keep it running. Kate's stomach tightened. Around her, hands shot up. Kids practically vibrating in their seats, eager to brag about their parents' corner offices and medical degrees. This was Amarillo, after all. Oil money and cattle ranches, doctors who drove trucks bigger than most people's living rooms, lawyers who wore Stetsons to court. Tyler Bennett went first. His dad was a petroleum engineer. He made 6 figures, Tyler announced, like the number meant something more than dollars. The class murmured approval. Sarah Chen talked about her mom, a surgeon at Northwest Texas Hospital. More approving nods. One by one, Kate watched her classmates paint pictures of parents who fit the mold. Parents whose jobs came with business cards and LinkedIn profiles. Parents who made sense. Then Miss Willoughby's eyes found her. Kate, would you like to share? Every head turned. Kate felt the weight of the dog tags against her chest, hidden, but suddenly heavy. She could lie. Say her dad was a mechanic. Technically true. He did work on bikes. But then she remembered last Saturday, sitting in the garage while her dad tuned his Harley. He'd looked at her, grease on his hands, and said something that stuck. Katie, the moment you hide who you are to make other people comfortable, you've already lost something you can't get back. She stood up. Her voice came out quieter than she wanted. My dad is a veteran. He served 2 tours in Iraq with the Marine Corps. A few nods. That part was safe. Respectable even. But then she said the rest. The part that separated her world from theirs. Now he rides with the Hells Angels. The classroom went silent. Not the good kind of silent. The kind that happens right before everything breaks. Tyler's jaw dropped. Another kid, Jessica Martinez, whispered something to her neighbor. Then Tyler laughed. Not a friendly laugh. The kind that cuts. Bikers are criminals, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. My dad says they're thugs who deal drugs and beat people up. Other voices joined in. Is your dad in jail? Does he have a mugshot? The questions came like punches. Kate's face burned. She wanted to tell them about the toy drive last Christmas, about the escort runs for abuse victims, about the time her dad's brothers raised $10,000 in a single weekend for a veteran who lost his legs to an IED. But the words stuck in her throat. Miss Willoughby raised her hand, trying to restore order, but Kate saw it in her teacher's eyes. That flicker of discomfort. That subtle agreement with the room's verdict. Thank you, Kate, Miss Willoughby said quickly. Let's move on. Kate sat down. Around her, whispers continued. But what nobody in that classroom knew yet was that word travels fast on 2 wheels, and some lessons can't be taught with a whiteboard and good intentions. The walk home from Canyon West Elementary felt longer than usual. Kate kept her head down, backpack straps digging into her shoulders, eyes fixed on the cracked sidewalk that had mapped her route home for 5 years. Amarillo in October was all blue sky and dust, the kind of weather where the wind never really stopped, just changed direction. She passed the Dollar General, where her mom bought school supplies, the Whataburger, where her dad sometimes took her for breakfast when he was home, the feed store that smelled like hay and diesel. Every step away from that classroom should have felt like relief. But shame has a way of following you, doesn't it? It sits on your shoulder, whispers in your ear, makes you replay every word, every laugh, every face that looked at you like you'd said something dirty. By the time Kate reached the corner of her street, her eyes were stinging. She wouldn't cry. Her dad taught her better than that. "Wilsons don't fold," he'd say. "We stand." But standing felt a lot harder when you were standing alone. Their house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a modest ranch style with a 2-car garage that her dad had converted into something else entirely. Through the small window, Kate could see it. His bike. A 2015 Harley-Davidson Road King, black as Texas crude with chrome that caught the afternoon sun like a promise. The club's colors hung on the wall behind it. Red and white. Letters that meant something to people who'd earned the right to understand them. Kate pushed open the side door. The garage smelled like motor oil and leather, coffee and old concrete. On the wall, photos told a story most people never wanted to read. Her dad in his Marine Corps uniform, desert camo, rifle across his chest, eyes harder than they were now. Beside it, another photo. Her dad and 12 other bikers at the Texas State Veteran Cemetery, standing at attention during a funeral for a homeless vet nobody else claimed. Another showed him handing a massive check to a children's hospital, surrounded by men in cuts and kids with cancer who were smiling like they'd just met superheroes. Because to them, they had. Kate pulled out her phone, started typing a message. "Dad, something happened at school today." Her thumb hovered over send. Then she deleted it. He was 3 counties over, organizing a charity ride for foster kids. The Iron Brotherhood annual toy run, his chapter's biggest event of the year. She'd heard him on the phone last night, coordinating with chapters from Lubbock, Midland, and even as far as Oklahoma City. 20 clubs, 200 riders, 10,000 toys. He didn't need her problems right now. Kate deleted the message and sat down on the garage floor, back against the workbench. Above her, hanging from a nail, was her dad's cut. She stood, reached up, ran her fingers over the patches. The Marine Corps emblem, the American flag, the Texas rocker, a memorial patch for a brother named Tommy, who died in Kandahar, another for a brother named Ray, who died on I-40, target of a driver who thought bikers deserved to be run off the road. Every patch told a story of sacrifice, of standing up, of not backing down. And here she was, sitting on a garage floor, wishing she could disappear. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom, Sarah. "Home in an hour. Rough shift. Love you." Her mom was an ER nurse at BSA Hospital. She'd been pulling doubles all week. The Wilson family was used to people being gone, being tired, being stretched thin, but they were also used to showing up when it mattered. Kate looked at the photo of her dad one more time. Then she made a decision. She picked up her phone and typed a different message. "This one," she sent. Sarah Wilson had seen a lot in 15 years of emergency room nursing, gunshot wounds on Saturday nights, car wrecks on icy roads, overdoses in gas station bathrooms. but nothing prepared you for the sound of your daughter's voice when she's trying not to cry. Kate's text had been simple. "Can you call me when you get a chance?" No drama. No exclamation points, which meant it was serious. Sarah called from the hospital parking lot, still in scrubs, her shift finally over at 7 p.m. Kate told her everything. The career day, Tyler Bennett's comments, the laughter, Miss Willoughby's quick dismissal. And the thing that hurt most, the silence afterward, like Kate had admitted to something shameful instead of being proud of the man who raised her. Sarah listened without interrupting, a skill you learn when people are bleeding. When Kate finished, there was a pause. Then Sarah said the words that would set everything in motion. "I'm calling your father." "Mom, no. He's busy with the toy run. I don't want to bother." But Sarah had already hung up. Because here's what Kate didn't understand yet. What comes with age and marriage and watching a good man fight wars both overseas and at home. When you disrespect a biker's family, you've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Sarah dialed William's number. It rang 3 times. Background noise, engines, voices, the unmistakable sound of brotherhood in motion. "Hey, baby," William answered, his voice carrying that Texas drawl that got thicker when he was happy. "We're about to roll out. Got about 40 bikes lined up. Should be a good run." "We need to talk," Sarah said. The tone shift was immediate. "What's wrong? Is Katie okay?" Sarah told him. Every detail. The mockery. The teacher's complicity through silence. The way their 10-year-old daughter came home feeling like her father's service, his brotherhood, his life was something to be ashamed of. The line went quiet. Not an empty quiet. The kind of quiet before thunder. When William finally spoke, his voice had changed. Calm, but carrying an edge Sarah had only heard a handful of times. Once, when a driver deliberately swerved into a pack of his brothers on Highway 287. Once, when he found out a VA hospital was denying benefits to a Purple Heart recipient. "I'll handle it," he said. "How?" Sarah asked, though part of her already knew. "The only way people learn respect," William said, "when they see what they've been too ignorant to understand." He made a call as soon as he hung up with Sarah. To Marcus, Preacher Hayes, president of the Iron Brotherhood Amarillo chapter. Preacher was a former Army Ranger, 62 years old, with a white beard and a Purple Heart tattooed over his actual Purple Heart scar. "We got a situation," William said, and then he explained. Preacher didn't hesitate. "I'll make calls." Within an hour, word spread through the Brotherhood like wildfire across dry plains. Not just the Amarillo chapter. Brothers from Canyon, from Hereford, from Borger and Duma and Pampa. Veterans who'd served in Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. Men who'd come home to a country that didn't always thank them, who'd found family on 2 wheels when blood family didn't understand. By midnight, 23 bikes were committed. By morning, that number was 34. Nobody asked what they were riding for. When one of your own, or one of your own's family gets disrespected, you don't ask questions. You just show up. William sat in a motel room in Childress, Texas, staring at his phone. His daughter's school photo was his wallpaper. That gap-toothed smile, those eyes that looked just like her mom's. He thought about every lesson he'd tried to teach her. Stand up for what's right. Don't let people make you small. Family protects family. Tomorrow, he was going to teach that lesson to a whole classroom, and Miss Willoughby's fifth-grade class was about to get an education they'd never forget. Thursday morning broke cold and clear over Amarillo. The kind of October morning where the sun looks bigger somehow, like Texas itself is showing off. Kate Wilson dragged herself out of bed, her stomach already knotted. School felt like walking back into a courtroom where the verdict had already been read. Guilty of having the wrong kind of father. Her mom made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, but Kate could barely eat. Sarah watched her daughter push food around her plate and felt that particular helplessness that comes with being a parent. You can't fix everything. You can't fight every battle. But sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you just have to step back and let the truth do the fighting. "You're going to be okay," Sarah said, squeezing Kate's shoulder. Kate nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. The bus ride to Canyon West Elementary was torture. Tyler Bennett sat 3 rows behind her, and she could feel his smirk without even looking. The whispers had already started. By the time the bus pulled into the loop, half the 5th grade knew Kate Wilson's dad was a criminal. Funny how lies travel faster than truth, isn't it? How a kid's ignorance becomes gospel by 3rd period. First bell rang at 8:15. Kate trudged to Miss Willoughby's classroom, took her seat in the back corner, and tried to become invisible again. Morning announcements crackled through the intercom. Pledge of Allegiance. A reminder about the book fair. A note that the cafeteria was serving pizza for lunch, like that mattered. Then, at 10:47 a.m. exactly, something changed. It started as a feeling more than a sound. A low vibration, distant but growing. Like thunder, except the sky was clear. Kate felt it first in her feet, a rumble through the floor tiles that made her look down, confused. Other kids noticed too. "What is that?" someone whispered. The rumble grew deeper, closer. Not thunder, not construction. Anyone who'd grown up around motorcycles would recognize that sound anywhere. The unmistakable growl of Harley-Davidson engines, multiple of them, moving in formation. Miss Willoughby stopped mid-sentence, her marker hovering over the whiteboard where she'd been diagramming a sentence about autumn leaves. The windows began to vibrate, softly at first, then enough that the blinds rattled. Now the sound was unmistakable. Motorcycles. A lot of them. Tyler's face went pale. "Are those—" The intercom crackled again, but this time it wasn't the secretary's cheerful voice. It was Principal Gaines, and he sounded rattled. "Teachers." A pause. Static. "We have visitors in the parking lot. This is not a drill. Please keep students calm and in your classrooms. Lock your doors." The last part came out shaky, like he wasn't sure himself what was happening. Miss Willoughby moved toward the door, but her hand froze on the handle, because the rumble had stopped. 34 engines cutting simultaneously. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the noise. Then came the boots. Heavy, purposeful, not running, walking. The sound of men who didn't need to hurry because they'd already won. Kate's heart was hammering. She knew that sound. She'd heard it her whole life. The deliberate pace of her father's boots on their driveway. The way he walked with the quiet confidence of someone who'd earned his place in the world. But this wasn't just one pair of boots. This was an army. The hallway outside filled with the sound of leather and purpose. Miss Willoughby backed away from the door, her face white. "Should we hide?" Jessica Martinez whispered, her voice cracking. But Kate wasn't scared. because under her shirt, pressed against her racing heart, she felt the metal of her father's dog tags. And for the first time since yesterday, she smiled. The classroom had 26 students, one teacher, and enough fear to choke on. Kids huddled near the back wall, some crying, others frozen in that particular terror that comes when you don't understand what's happening but know it's big. Tyler Bennett, the same kid who'd called Kate's father a thug yesterday, was gripping his desk so hard his knuckles had gone white. Miss Willoughby had her phone out, hands shaking, probably trying to decide if this was a 911 situation or something else entirely. But Kate wasn't huddled. She wasn't crying. She was standing, watching the door, because she'd just figured out what everyone else was about to learn. The Boots stopped right outside their classroom. For 5 seconds, maybe 10, there was nothing. Just breathing, just the tick of the wall clock above the whiteboard, just the distant sound of a school that had gone completely still, like the whole building was holding its breath. Then the door opened. Not kicked, not forced, just opened, slow and deliberate, the way you open a door when you don't need permission because you've already earned the right to be there. The first man through was massive. 6'4", at least 250, with a gray beard braided down to his chest and arms covered in ink that told stories of battles fought and brothers lost. His leather cut was pristine, patches aligned with military precision. American flag on the left chest, Texas rocker across the shoulders, and in the center the club's colors, bold, unapologetic, earned. Behind him the doorway filled with more. Not rushing, not threatening, just standing, a wall of leather and presence that made the classroom feel suddenly smaller. These weren't the bikers from TV shows or movies. These were men with gray in their beards and lines around their eyes. Men who'd held rifles before they'd held handlebars. Veterans who'd traded one uniform for another, one brotherhood for the next. The big man, preacher, though the kids didn't know that yet, scanned the room with eyes that missed nothing. His gaze passed over Tyler, over Miss Willoughby, over every kid who'd laughed yesterday. Then his eyes found Kate, and his expression softened, just slightly. A nod. Respect between people who understood the code. "Ma'am," preacher said, his voice deep but not loud, addressing Miss Willoughby. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to educate." Miss Willoughby opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Sir, I need to ask you to leave. This is a school. You can't just—" "Can't what?" Another voice. This one Kate knew in her bones. Her father stepped through the doorway, and the whole room seemed to tilt. William Wilson wasn't the biggest man there, but he carried himself like someone who'd never backed down from anything in his life. His cut told his story before he opened his mouth. Marine Corps patch, combat action ribbon, 2 deployment chevrons, memorial patches for brothers who didn't come home. He looked at his daughter first. Just looked. Not with pity, not with anger, with pride. Then his eyes swept the classroom, landing on each kid who'd laughed, each face that had mocked. When he spoke, it wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. "My name is William Wilson. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. 2 tours in Iraq. I've earned every scar, every medal, and every patch you see on this cut." He gestured to the men behind him, still framing the doorway like a living wall. "These men? Every single one of them served this country, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. We've got Purple Hearts in this hallway, Bronze Stars. Men who've sacrificed more for America than most people will ever understand." Tyler was shaking now. not from danger. These men weren't threatening anyone. From the realization that maybe, just maybe, everything he'd been taught about bikers was wrong. William took a step closer to Miss Willoughby's desk. We've raised over $200,000 for children's hospitals across Texas. We've escorted abuse victims to court when they were too scared to go alone. We've stood at military funerals when protesters showed up to disrespect the dead. We've delivered food to homeless vets. The system forgot. His voice stayed level, but every word landed like truth. So when my daughter comes home yesterday telling me she was mocked for being proud of who her father is, for being proud of the brotherhood that's carried her family when times got hard, he paused, looked directly at Tyler. Son, that tells me there's been a failure of education. The classroom was silent. No one moved, no one breathed, and Kate, standing in the back, finally understood what her father had been teaching her all along. Respect isn't given, it's shown. William let the silence hang for a moment, the kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable enough to actually listen. Behind him, 33 brothers stood in formation, not aggressive, just present. A reminder that some forces in this world don't need to raise their voices to be heard. They just need to stand together. Miss Willoughby had set her phone down. Her hand wasn't shaking anymore, but her face had gone from white to flushed. That particular shade of embarrassment that comes when you realize you've been complicit in something ugly. Mr. Wilson, she started, her teacher voice trying to regain control. I understand you're upset, but this isn't appropriate. You can't just show up at a school with what? Preacher asked from the doorway, his voice gentle but firm. With veterans? With fathers? With men who've dedicated their lives to service? He stepped forward slightly, and the kids could see the patches on his cut more clearly now, the Purple Heart emblem, the Ranger tab, the memorial patch with the words, "In memory of all who never came home." Miss Willoughby's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Because what do you say to that? How do you explain that leather jackets made you more nervous than the truth should? William walked slowly toward Tyler's desk. The boy looked ready to bolt, but William's expression wasn't angry. It was something else. Disappointed, maybe, or just tired of the same old story. Tyler, right? William asked. Tyler nodded, barely. Your dad says bikers are thugs? Tyler's voice came out as a whisper. He said you guys sell drugs and hurt people. William nodded slowly, like he'd heard it 1,000 times before. Because he had. Let me tell you something about my brothers, son. See that man in the doorway? The one with the white beard? Tyler's eyes flicked to Preacher. That's Marcus Hayes, Army Ranger. 3 tours in Afghanistan. He's got a Purple Heart for taking shrapnel while carrying 2 wounded soldiers to a medevac chopper. Saved both their lives. Lost partial hearing in his left ear doing it. He gestured to another biker, a Hispanic man with kind eyes and silver in his hair. That's Javier Ruiz, Navy corpsman. He's delivered 17 babies for mothers who couldn't afford hospital bills. Does it for free in his garage because the system failed them. Another gesture, this time to a black man with a scarred face and arms like tree trunks. That's Leon Carter, Marine Corps. Did 4 tours. Now he runs a program teaching at-risk kids in Amarillo how to rebuild motorcycles, giving them skills and purpose so they don't end up in gangs or dead by 25. William's voice never rose, but every word hit harder than a shout. We don't sell drugs, Tyler. We ride against child abuse. We escort kids to chemo appointments when their parents can't take off work. We stand at the funerals of homeless veterans and give them the honor the government couldn't be bothered to provide." He paused, letting it sink in. "When you called my daughter a liar yesterday, when you said her father was a criminal, you weren't just insulting me. You were insulting every man standing in this hallway. Men who've bled for the flag, who've buried brothers, who've earned the right to be respected." Kate felt tears on her face, but they weren't sad tears. They were the kind that come when you finally feel seen. When the truth you've been carrying alone gets spoken out loud by someone who won't back down. Miss Willoughby stepped forward, and to her credit, her voice was steadier now. "Mr. Wilson, I owe you an apology. I owe Kate an apology." She turned to face the class, and her eyes were bright. "I failed you all yesterday. When Kate told us about her father, I should have used it as a teaching moment. Instead, I let ignorance win." She looked at Tyler, then at the other kids. "Stereotypes are easy. Truth takes work. And these men," she gestured to the bikers, "they've done the work. They've earned the respect we should have given them from the start." William nodded at her, a small acknowledgement. Then he turned back to Kate, walked to the back of the room, knelt down so they were eye level. "You did good, sweetheart," he said quietly, just for her. "You told the truth even when it was hard. That's all I ever ask." He reached into his cut and pulled out something small, a patch embroidered with care. It read, "Biker's Daughter, protected by the Brotherhood." He handed it to her. "You wear this when you're ready, and you remember, family isn't just blood. It's who shows up when the world doesn't." Kate took the patch, her hands trembling. Around them, 33 bikers, men who'd seen war and loss and pain, raised 2 fingers, the rider's salute, the signal that means, "I see you, brother. I see you, sister. You're not alone." And in that moment, in a 5th-grade classroom in Amarillo, Texas, a little girl who'd felt invisible finally understood what her father had been teaching her all along. When a biker becomes your family, they're your family forever. William stood, his hand resting briefly on Kate's shoulder, and turned back to the classroom. The kids were watching now, really watching, in a way they hadn't yesterday. Yesterday, they'd listened to Tyler's dad's opinions. Today, they were seeing the truth standing in front of them, wearing leather and scars and honor. "I want to tell you all something," William said, his voice carrying that teaching tone Kate knew from their garage talks. "And I want you to remember it. Because someday, some of you are going to need help. Maybe from the system, maybe from a stranger, maybe from someone who doesn't look like what you expect a hero to look like." He gestured to the hallway where more brothers stood. 6 months ago, a little girl in Canyon, Texas, about 30 miles from here, was being abused by her stepfather. System knew, school knew, but paperwork takes time, right? Courts are slow. Meanwhile, she's getting hurt every night. The classroom was absolutely silent now. Even the kids who'd been sniffling had stopped. Her teacher reached out to our chapter. Not the police, not CPS, us. You know what we did? William's eyes swept the room. 20 of us showed up at that house. Didn't touch the man. Didn't have to. Just stood on his lawn, arms crossed, and told him we'd be watching. That every time he came home, we'd be somewhere nearby. That if one more bruise showed up on that little girl, he'd answer to us. Javier spoke up from the doorway, his voice carrying a soft Texas drawl. Girl's in a safe home now. Stepfather's in jail. And she knows that when the system fails, there's still people who show up. Another biker, this one older with a long white ponytail and a scar across his cheek, added, "Last Christmas, we delivered toys to 300 kids in foster care across the Texas Panhandle. Not because we got tax write-offs or recognition, because those kids deserve to wake up Christmas morning knowing somebody gave a damn." William pointed at Tyler, but not unkindly. "Your dad's probably a good man, son. Probably works hard, loves his family. But he's wrong about us. And maybe that's because he's never needed us. Pray he never does. But if he ever finds himself in a situation where the system fails him, where he needs people who'll show up no questions asked, we'll be there, because that's what we do." Miss Willoughby wiped her eyes. "Mr. Wilson, I'd like to invite you, and any of your brothers who are willing, to come back for a real career day, so these kids can learn what I should have taught them." William glanced back at Preacher, who nodded. "We'd be honored, ma'am." Then William reached into his cut again and pulled out a small stack of business cards. Not for a business exactly, but for something more important. He handed them to Miss Willoughby. "These are for resources. Veterans crisis lines, child abuse hotlines, domestic violence shelters, numbers for our chapter if anyone needs an escort, needs help, needs someone to stand between them and trouble." He looked at the kids. "You keep these. Give them to your parents, because America is a great country, but it's not perfect. Sometimes the system fails, and when it does, you need to know there's people who'll show up anyway." The bikers began to file out, but slowly, deliberately. No rush. They'd made their point. As Preacher passed Kate's desk, he stopped, pulled off a small pin from his cut, a tiny American flag, and set it on her desk. "You hold your head up, little sister," he said. "You come from good stock." One by one the brotherhood left. The hallway emptied. The rumble of engines started again, but this time it didn't sound threatening. It sounded like freedom, like power harnessed for good. Like America at its best, flawed, loud, but showing up when it mattered. William was the last to leave. He stopped at the door, looked back at his daughter. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The look said it all. "You're not alone. You never were." Then he was gone. The engines roared to life outside, a symphony of chrome and horsepower. Through the windows, the kids watched as 34 bikes rolled out of the parking lot in perfect formation, 2 by 2, disciplined, proud. And as they left, each rider threw up 2 fingers, the salute that means safe travels, rubber side down, see you on the road. The classroom stayed quiet for a long time after they left. Finally Tyler spoke, his voice small. "Miss Willoughby, can I change my career day presentation?" She smiled, tears still on her cheeks. "I think we all can, Tyler." The rest of that Thursday passed in a blur. Word spread through Canyon West Elementary like wildfire through dry grass, the way news does when something real happens in a place where nothing ever does. By lunch, every kid in school had heard some version of the story. By dismissal, half of them wanted to be bikers when they grew up. Kate sat in the cafeteria, her lunch tray in front of her, and for the first time in 5 years at this school, people sat with her, not out of pity, out of curiosity, out of respect. Jessica Martinez, who'd whispered cruelly yesterday, slid into the seat across from her. Kate, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I repeated what my mom said, and I shouldn't have. Kate looked at her, this girl who'd been so quick to judge, and made a choice. The same choice her father had made in the classroom, to educate, not to punish. It's okay, Kate said, but maybe next time, ask questions before you decide who someone is. Jessica nodded, and Kate saw something shift in her eyes. Growth, understanding, the thing that happens when ignorance meets truth and decides to learn. By the time Kate got home, her mom was already there, waiting on the front porch with a cup of coffee and a knowing smile. I heard your dad made quite an entrance, Sarah said. Kate grinned, a real one, the kind that reaches your eyes. He showed them, Mom. He showed all of them. Sarah pulled her daughter close. That's what family does, baby. We show up. That night, the Wilson house smelled like pot roast and laughter. William came home just after 6, his bike rumbling into the driveway like a herald. Kate met him at the door and threw her arms around his waist, squeezing tight. He hugged her back, and for a moment they just stood there, father and daughter, connected by more than blood, by code, by choice. I'm proud of you, Katie girl, he said quietly. You stood up when it was hard. That takes more courage than most people ever show. Over dinner, William told stories about the ride, that day about preacher's jokes, about how Javier had stopped to help a stranded motorist on the way back and ended up fixing the guy's alternator on the side of Highway 287. About how brotherhood wasn't just a word, it was a verb, something you do every single day. That weekend, Kate asked her dad if she could ride with him to the toy run in Lubbock. Not on the back of his bike, she was still too young for highway speeds, but in the chase vehicle with some of the wives and kids. William thought about it, then nodded. You've earned it? Saturday morning, Kate woke before dawn, too excited to sleep. She pulled on jeans and the jacket her mom had bought her, the one with a small patch sewn on the back. Property of nobody. Respect existence or expect resistance. Biker kid humor, the kind that made her dad laugh and her mom roll her eyes. They met the chapter at a truck stop off I-27. 30 bikes. Families loading trailers with toys, boxes stacked high with teddy bears and action figures, dolls and board games. Kate helped load, working alongside men and women who treated her not like a kid, but like family, like she belonged. The ride to Lubbock was 2 hours, and Kate watched from the chase vehicle as the pack rolled out. Her dad was near the front, riding beside Preacher, their bikes moving in sync the way brothers do. The morning sun caught the chrome, and for a moment Kate understood something bigger than herself. This wasn't just about motorcycles. It wasn't just about rebellion or freedom or the open road. It was about service, about showing up, about being the people who answer when the system won't. When they reached the foster care facility in Lubbock, 200 kids were waiting, kids who'd been forgotten, abused, abandoned. Kids the system had failed in 100 different ways, and when those bikes rolled in, when those rough-looking men with tattoos and beards climbed off their Harleys and started handing out toys, those kids' faces lit up like Christmas morning. Kate watched her dad kneel down to talk to a little boy, maybe 6 years old, who'd been too scared to come forward, watched him hand the kid a remote control car and show him how it worked. Watched the boy's face transform from fear to joy. And she understood. This was what her father had been trying to teach her all along. That family isn't just who shares your blood. It's who shows up when nobody else will. That respect isn't about what you wear or what you ride or what people say about you. It's about what you do when it matters. That night, driving home, Kate fell asleep in the back seat of the chase vehicle, her head against the window. She dreamed of highways and brotherhood, of leather and honor, of a world where standing up meant something and showing up was everything. And when she woke up, her hand was still clutching the patch her father had given her. Biker's daughter, protected by the brotherhood. She'd wear it proudly, because now, finally, she understood what it meant. When Miss Willoughby invited the brotherhood back 3 weeks later for a proper career day presentation, 30 bikers showed up. Not to intimidate, to educate. They brought photos of charity rides and toy runs. They brought statistics, the millions raised for children's hospitals, the thousands of escorts provided for abuse victims, the countless funerals attended when no one else would. Tyler Bennett's dad showed up too. Not to protest, to apologize. He shook William's hand, man to man, and said the words that proved growth is possible. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. And thank you for what you do." William accepted with grace, because that's what brotherhood teaches: forgiveness, second chances, the understanding that we're all learning, all the time. Kate sat in the front row that day, wearing her patch, and when her dad finished speaking, she raised 2 fingers. The rider's salute, and every biker in that room returned it, because that's what family does. They see you, they stand with you, and they never, ever leave you behind. If you believe that respect is earned, not given, that brotherhood means showing up when the world doesn't, that veterans deserve honor no matter what they wear, then like and share this story. Let it reach every person who's ever been judged for standing by their family. Subscribe now for more stories like this, stories about loyalty, justice, and the people who protect what matters. Also, check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you, stories of brotherhood that'll remind you what America is really built on.